I was struggling so bad. My grandma and I, we just weren't getting along anymore. And I told her that I was going to run away if she didn't let me go meet my dad because I found emails and they were corresponding. And I was like, I know that man, that is my face. Okay, I want to meet my dad or I'm going to run away. I'm over it. And so I moved out here and I realized why she took me from him because he's horrible. So I called my mom, lives over here in Utah. And I was like, hey, so we can talk him into letting me come out for Christmas break. Will you just keep me forever? Because this man is scary. And so she did. So my dad put me on a plane and I moved out to Utah in 2007 when I was 14. And my mom and my dad, neither of them were very supportive of my mental health. It's all in your head and you're seeking attention. And so neither of them were very good for me. I don't know it for a fact, but I think my mom either has borderline personality disorder or bipolar, one of the different types. I don't know exactly, but I know that she's not completely healthy either. But she refuses to acknowledge it and she refuses to get help and she gets really upset if anyone brings it up. So she was a little abusive, verbally more than physically. I could count on my hands the number of times she got physical, but that really didn't help either. And so when I was 17, because we were fighting so much, she kicked me out. I was actually living with my stepdad at the time. Her husband had got divorced, and so living with like my ex stepdad, but he was the safest option I had. And so we were fighting, and then she convinced him to kick me out because I just needed to learn a lesson. So I was homeless at 17, and I really got into drugs and alcohol. Just that happens. And that I don't think helped my mental health at all. I then met my soon-to-be husband while I was homeless. And I don't like to label people, especially if they haven't had a diagnosis, but he's another type of person. He's very unhealthy for, I would say, any woman. But I stayed with him for 7 years and he helped me bring my child into this world. So but I would have panic attacks, just either for no reason or because he would trigger them or whatever, life events, but I was having lots of panic attacks. And while I'd be laying on the floor crying, he would just be talking down to me the whole time. And, calling me names or telling me I'm attention seeking or telling me it's all in my head. And I'm like, yeah, bro, it's in my head. Like, it's literally in my head. So I don't know what to tell you, but unless you can get in there, like, we're not going to figure this out. After my son was born, though, I did eventually work up the courage to leave him because I was like, this isn't healthy for either of us. And I was having really, really terrible. Yes, babe.
Okay, let me get this, and then I'm gonna go get my school.
Okay. But I was just having a lot of suicidal thoughts. He had to pull a gun out of my hand. It was so bad. He called my dad over, and together they removed all sharp objects from the home, and I was pretty much on a watch.
I accidentally dropped it because I was trying to take it with 2 hands.
Yeah.
But I dropped it. Not break.
You're great, babe. Proud of you.
Yes. This is kind of hard. Wait, are you done?
No, I'm not done, baby. I'm just going to quickly get you your fix so you can chill. You saying hi? Hi! Yeah, Mom's got some new friends and they're really awesome.
Morphle.
Here you go, babe. Put this back, please. Okay.
Okay.
I'm almost done, okay? I
Can
promise.
I watch this?
Go ahead. But, yeah, so after that, I moved back in with my dad when I separated from my husband. And I thought that things were okay. I really did. And then I was working. I lost another job, and then I quit a job, and then I lost another job, and then I quit a job. And I had a panic attack while I was working at Olive Garden. And at least by then I knew what it was because I'd had so many. And thank the Lord for the internet and self-education. But I was having a panic attack and I thought my employers were chill, and they were like, they try to help me through it. They're like, well, maybe if you go stand in the walk-in, it'll help. after I think it was like an hour and a half of me just trying to calm down, my manager looked at me and he was like, "All right, Adrian, so like, are you gonna go back on the floor or?" And I was like, "No, bro, I don't think I can go back on the floor." And after that, my relationship with them kind of changed, and I started getting less hours, and they're just being mean to me. And so that was when I quit my job before I'd even got a new one, because that happens. And that's when I first went to the doctor, and I was like, "Yo, I don't know if I need medication, but like I need some help." And that was kind of great for a minute. And then I still wasn't seeing a therapist, but I was just going to my regular doctor, and I'd have to go back every so often because the medication wasn't working, and so she'd double my dose, and then she's like, "Well, since we doubled it last time, we'll just change it this time." And then it happened again, and she was like, "Well, we'll just do it again, we'll just double it, and if that doesn't work, then we'll change it again next time." And I was like, "No, I'm so over this." And I remember I was just crying, and I looked at her and I was like, "I don't know what's wrong with me, but I just need you to fix me." And she looked at me with so much compassion in her eyes, and she stopped everything that she was typing, and she straight up looked at me and she was like, "Honey, there's nothing wrong with you. You have a mental disability and it's okay." And I was like, "Oh, reality, man, that hurts." But it's facts. And it helped. Hearing that helped. And so that's one of the things that I like to tell people, because I hear that so often when people seek out my help, or I see them posting something and I hit them up in their DMs, and where I'm like, "Just so you know, there's nothing wrong with you. You just are going through a thing and it's totally normal, and you're allowed to feel how you feel, and there's nothing wrong with it." Um, but after that, I stopped taking my medication, and then I lost my insurance, and I decided, it was around about a year after I'd stopped taking my meds, I realized I needed to start taking meds again. But I started working, I got more hours, I got 3 promotions at work in 6 months. I was super proud of myself, but then I lost my state benefits because I was making too much money. But at the same time, my job's insurance was just too expensive, I couldn't afford to pay for it. So I was like, "Ugh, bind." And then I just went, uh, I don't know, I just accepted my fate, I guess. I was like, "Well, I guess I don't need no help." And then 2020 hit, and similar to your experience with your job, uh, I had a change of, I wouldn't say ownership really, or management. It was more so I was working at Sprint and T-Mobile was buying them out, and I was running my own store. And so because I worked for a third party company, not exactly T-Mobile or Sprint directly, they had to close a bunch of stores down. And so we were going from having 37 stores in the valley to having only 11. So there's a lot of people losing jobs, and they're trying to act like everyone is going to keep them, but people just changed. It was very much a dog eat dog world. And my manager, who used to be very understanding and um, caring and considerate of everything that I was going through, all of a sudden was just a total a hole. And that didn't help. So I almost quit my job. But then I got a new manager, and I was hopeful because she was a woman and she was really fun and she was always sweet and she was really kind. But we didn't have time to really develop a personal relationship. And then because of all the cutthroat things going on with the company and all the changes that were happening, like I loved my store. I put so much pride into it. I didn't really like my job per se, but I loved it because I was good at it and I felt like I could help people. I wasn't the type of salesman that just like took advantage of people, or I could have made so much more money if I was, but I'm not shady. I have integrity. Um, but yeah, and so she came along, and then I was just really struggling with all the changes that were going on. And I don't know, I think I was dealing with a lot of depression and anxiety at that time. And my performance just really took a dive. I'd go into work and I could barely show up. I was late all the time and I just couldn't do anything. And then she asked me one day, she was like, "Adrian, we need to talk." And I was like, "All right, I know. I knew that this was coming. My bad." And so she asked me what was wrong. And I was like, "So I haven't had an opportunity to explain to you yet. And I feel like it's a little bit late now, but rather now than never." And so I gave her the rundown of what I was struggling with in my personal life and with my mental health concerns. And then she was like, "Well, honey, what can I do for you? What do you need from me?" And I was like, "Honestly, I need some time off." And she goes, "You have PTO." And I was like, "I know, I just feel bad because my store's understaffed. Y'all are going through so much. I really don't want you guys to struggle." And she goes, "Well, I'm gonna be honest, and don't take this the wrong way, but having you here right now is not really helping either." And I was like, "That's fair." Because she's not wrong. I have a really good work ethic, but at that time it just really took a decline where I didn't care about anything. I was like, I don't even care about my job. And then I took my PTO, and then the morning that I was supposed to come back from work at 9:34, she texted me and she was like, "Hi Adrian, so I'm gonna need you to drop your keys off today before the end of the day. Otherwise I'm gonna have to charge you for the locksmith." I was like, oh, I'm getting fired. And then I've been struggling to find employment since because it's COVID. This happened in March. And no, May, the end of May is when that happened. And so, oh man, this year has been a little bit rough on me. And then just like not struggling to find good employment and just decent with my parent time schedule and his school schedule, stuff like that. Finding an employer that's understanding is really important to me, someone who I trust, who's not going to make me freak out or will take my mental health seriously has been very difficult. But after going through everything that I went through this year and so many bouts of suicidal just ideation, really, um, where I was like, working really makes me want to murder myself right now. And I just really am trying not to do that. So it's just been a really difficult uh, year for me. And then about a week or two ago, I realized that my anxiety was so bad. I didn't realize it until I could taste the blood in my mouth, but I was grinding my teeth so bad that, first of all, I started bleeding. And even now, still today, a few weeks later, I have teeth that are loose and it hurts to eat certain things. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm only 27 and I've got the worst teeth in the world. It hurts." And so I did finally take the steps since I'm employed, but like I have multiple part-time jobs right now because it's just easier for me to feel like I'm working for myself, and not have the stress of like having to be somewhere 40 hours a week. Um, but I applied for state assistance and I'm waiting to get approved because I'm sure that I will. But when I do, then I'm definitely going back to the doctor and I'm going to ask her to refer me to a therapist again. And because I need to get back on my meds, is what I learned in 2020. So I don't know if anyone else needed to hear that for that reason alone. But for me, medication, I think, is the only way that I can really cope fully because there are coping mechanisms that I can use, but they don't get me through every day. And some days are just really hard. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
all I have to say.
yeah, 100% on the medication side. I, I'm right there with you. I Bipolar and major depression, they really have their way of just being like, if you don't take me, it's going to get rough. And, or you're going to have the time of your life and you're just going to go want to spend all of your money and it's going to be great. And, just throw your life away. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's good. Everything's great. And then it's not. Um, that's, that's great. But honestly, I I appreciate that you're still here. I appreciate that you found those little reasons to stay. And I get it. I get that because I wouldn't have been here if my friend Jimmy didn't show up to the track that day. And I wouldn't have been here if my alarm clock didn't go off to go to work and I'd been up for 24 hours contemplating well, not contemplating, currently trying to do it. But there's nothing wrong with needing more help. There's nothing wrong with medication. There's nothing wrong with mindfulness, coping mechanisms. Like, taking care of your mental health is a full-time job. Like, that is literally what we have to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. The more that we normalize actually taking care of it and actually everything that we do to take care of it, the more people are going to start allowing that to be a part of their daily routine. Where, oh, well, like, I could actually take a moment for myself, or, hey, I don't feel too good right now. Hey, take a moment. Go. Do you need half the day off? Like, those conversations at work where it's just like, hey, do you need time to yourself? Like, what do you need from me? Because it sounded like your manager at the time was really helpful. And then she was just like, but turn in your keys. It's like, no. It, all right, whatever. Like, you've made your decision, I guess. But I think we lost Jay. I think she might have had to go. I don't know. But yeah, honestly, no, she's back. This is why we're talking about this stuff, because it's not always just a bad day. We're not coming from just a background of, oh, well, like, I just don't like my step parents, or because that's also part of mental health. Mental health goes a million different paths, and we have 6 complete different paths here, where it starts early, or some just didn't experience it till COVID, or some, no matter what span of life that you are now witnessing or having to experience taking care of your mental health, having a safe place to talk about it is going to help all of us. It helps all of us, because whether it's owning more of your story, which is huge, because if you just deny that everything happened to you, or you deny what brought you to where you are today, things are going to keep happening and you're not going to know why. Because those things that happened when you were younger, those things that happened in your last relationship, those things that happened when you were in school, those things that happened at your last job, it stays with you. And I really appreciate your bravery to be able to kind of completely be vulnerable and talk about your story. And I just thank you. And then
You for giving me the safe place to discuss it, because I don't feel safe to discuss it just anywhere. And it does feel good to get it out.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Actually, I was in a cafe the other day, and I was doing a meeting. I was doing one of the interviews with one of the mental health advocates that I just signed on, and she went through a rough time, and we were talking about getting through suicide events and that aspect. And I didn't realize how loud I was talking, but I was in a cafe, and so like I like looked around, and this couple, like, we're all pretty far from each other. It was before they shut everything back down today. But they just like kept staring at me, and I was like, what are they looking at? Anyways, I'm really glad you're here. And I was like, oh, I was just screaming this. Noted. I was like, but this is why we're doing it. Normalize it. Stop being weird. and no, but I thank you. And then last but not least, Jay.
Okay, apologize for me leaving the chat. My Wi-Fi was being very difficult and I had to fix it. But so I just kind of want to like I guess I'll give like a brief history of my dealing with mental health and stuff. I guess growing up, I've always known like some of these thoughts aren't kind of normal, and it was kind of weird being little and like not really acknowledging these things going on around you. But as I got older, it wasn't until like I was probably like 16, I had like my first major intrusive thought, and it's like, to use my language, was just like, what the fuck? Like, what is that? Like, I don't know what that is. And it's just like, Janelle, why would you think about something like that? And I didn't dwell on it too much, so obviously it went away. And then as I graduated high school, which is back in 2018, I'm 20 right now. But when I was about 18, it started getting worse. And these thoughts, I don't talk about it completely just because it's still uncomfortable for me. I accepted the fact that it's something I'm gonna have to live with, but it's just the intrusive thoughts I kind of get are just very, really intense. And luckily I haven't been getting them as intense anymore because I've been through 2 therapists. My first one, I really liked her, but when COVID happened, stuff got difficult for her and I had to understand that. So I took a new therapist on. But as I was dealing with these thoughts, it's just, I felt like I was going crazy. That's all I could say is I kept telling everybody I would have breakdowns. My ex I was with at the time, I'd lash out. I was an angry person. I didn't understand, like, why would I think about something so terrible? I started searching it up. Even the thought of typing up, why do I think about blah, blah, blah? It's just like, oh shit, like I get bad anxiety. So I'm just like, oh my God, the government's going to know, they're going to take me, they're going to put me in a psych ward. I'm going to go crazy. Everybody's going to know I'm crazy. And it's just that fear that they're going to admit me or that I'm going to have to take medication. I was even scared to go to a therapist. That was before. But it was just like, the first thing was like, why am I having these thoughts? I started searching it up. The first thing that comes up is this woman's story. I still remember it was a woman's story about she got postpartum depression, but then she started talking about how she would get intrusive thoughts, and it was about like thoughts about like her harming her baby, and she was just like, everybody thought she was crazy, and it's just like, oh my God, like I understand you, like it's not something you want to do, it's just why do these thoughts pop into my head? And I search on, like you guys say, technology, and then OCD pops up, obsessive compulsion disorder. And I'm like, I don't wash my hands. I don't overly do that. I do. OCD tends to grow when it starts to shift, and it really sucks. But at first it was intrusive thoughts, and I was like, no way, there's no way. I started searching into it. There was so many things about like people. It didn't just deal with counting numbers or not stepping on lines and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, those are very difficult things that people who have those types of OCD, I feel for them completely, because it's something I would never wish or want anybody to live through. But once you hear like, yes, you do have it, it's a part of you, but it's not who you are. You're not your thoughts. I had to keep telling myself that. It was just a really bumpy road. And then along the line, I didn't realize it, but an eating disorder started growing. And I was just like, you grow up eating, like when you're little, it's just like, oh my God, I can eat everything. Like, oh, I'm going to go to the movies. I'm going to get so many snacks with my friends. And then you're like 19, you're like scared of a piece of pie because, oh my God, it's 500 calories. And trigger warning for anybody who has dealt with that. But even to this day, it's still a struggle to find, like for me, it's slow. Like I start off with low calorie foods just to like, find a safe spot. But there's some days where like I come home and then I'm overthinking that the mini Snickers bar I ate this morning, and it's terrible. And then I won't get too much into it, but it's a very difficult thing to live with, just constantly being afraid of something that you need in your body. Being afraid of food is something I would never wish upon anybody, because that is so terrible. And I deal, earlier a couple months ago, I went through depression and stuff like that. I was put on Prozac. For me, the pills didn't really work as much, so I kind of took the whole mindfulness coping mechanisms. I learned, positive self-talk. I surrounded myself around people who are positive. I watched like YouTube, very spiritual YouTubers and stuff, other people that kind of fed positive energy to me. I tried to find myself and stuff like that. But like even now, when I started, I knew, like maybe ever since I was in high school, I've always been interested in psychology and stuff like that. And growing up, I never really thought like, well, nothing really happened to you. Like, why are you so interested? I thought I wasn't allowed to, and that's not true, because like we said, mental health is for everybody. And well, once I got into college, I started switching majors, and then it was in college when I found out all about this OCD. And once that hit, I was like, oh my God, like I didn't even know that kind of OCD was a thing. I did not know that was OCD. And it struck, it was like, oh my God, people are not educated on things like this. Like imagine if 16-year-old me, Janelle, knew that, I would have gotten help then, and it would have, it would have been a lot better. But life happens, everything happens for a reason. But my main thing is just like, I really want to push it out there. Like, we have to start small, but what I see in the bigger picture is, really teaching this in schools. It should be mandatory. Once children start, obviously, like not pushing it on them, but like learning how to deal with your emotions. That's part of mental health. Acknowledging what you're feeling. It's okay to feel negative feelings. It's okay. As long as you acknowledge it, you start learning how to work with it. I push for more diversity in our therapists just because, as a person of color, I would like to see a person of color, so many more of those therapists, because it makes sense, because you feel more, people who've gone through your struggles, especially on topics like that, privileges and things like that. I feel like there should be more diversity in that field, just for, like my mind goes all over the place. Like I will jump like thinking. But other things I wanted to get on top of too was how you guys talk about like the workforce and stuff like that. And it's like, you wouldn't send somebody who has a broken leg to work. So why would you send somebody who's going through a very hard time, especially when you can't function? And it's so crazy how you guys bring that up today, because this morning, I literally, if I'm being honest, I had a mental breakdown. And it's crazy because you don't really know. The way it started is I was doing my makeup, and my makeup was irritating me. I had to keep fixing it. And then I realized, this past week, I just been, having a lot of these bad thoughts in my head, stressing out about school, money, everything. And especially with this whole COVID experience, it's very difficult being isolated, not feeling like you can't go out and talk to people. Or just me, I'm a social person. I like to be in person. Like, I'd rather be sitting in a room with you guys than, and even
Uh-oh, I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you, Janelle.
Oh, I think I accidentally muted. I'm so sorry. Okay, so let me restate that.
I wanted to hear what you were
Thank
going
you
to
for letting me
say.
know. I would have kept going and not even known. But
I was trying to I thought it was my
yeah,
computer.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
me too. I was like, should I say
Everybody's like, wait, what?
Me too.
No, I didn't even
Yeah.
notice. Okay, thank you guys for telling me. Thank you. But like this morning, I had this like breakdown, and a lot of the times, like these things are like, sometimes you push things so far back, it takes these little things to trigger you to like realize like, oh my God, that's what's been in my head. We repress these things so much, and it just starts to manifest. And I realized that, and then I didn't want to call into work. My grandma had to call in for me. And I think it's, and like how I've heard all your guys' stories, it's true. Not only should we push this in schools and stuff, but push this in the work, because like I said, you wouldn't send somebody who's physically unable to work. Why would you send somebody who's mentally unable, who's mentally not stable to be in a place where they have to talk to other people? It's so difficult to, like, I feel for all you guys when you guys speak about all these things you go to, especially in school. Like, these educators should have more, I guess, take more classes about psychology and stuff, because as a little kid, how are you gonna like humiliate somebody for not knowing, like, I don't know, I had so many things in my head, but I think I was just like, oh, like everything's going everywhere. But the main thing is just like, I just feel like, how could I say, like there's so much to do with mental health. There literally is. We could look at the big picture, push it in schools. Like, I took a political science class last year, literally, and we had to make like a proposition that we would make for the state of California, and so on and so on. And well, my proposition was we make mandatory classes about mental health education in schools, starting from when these children are younger until, like K through 12. Because we have PE, we have all these things, but what about how do you help a child when they should be able to learn to acknowledge their feelings? Because like I said, if I would have known all this when I was younger, imagine how much more help I could have got, how much more better it would have been. But it's good that I think my main part is just I really want to educate others because, like I said, like I didn't think that was OCD. I didn't know. And just like I met, and then like as you get into college, you meet new people, and I met a friend with ADHD as well. And I didn't know all those difficulties. I knew people who had it, but and that's the thing, there's so much stigma when you're little. When I was younger growing up, I've known people with like ADHD and I was little, and the first thing I hear people saying is like, oh, their kids are brats and this and that. No, they're not brats. They have a mental health like there's, they need, how can I say, like understanding. People need to understand. The more people are educated about it, imagine how much more normalized all these talks would be. Like to me, I would not never, but it'd be very difficult for me to tell this to a group of people I just met than just people who are already like I know are on the same page as me. And I feel like everybody should be on the same page. If we know, how important physical health is, why isn't mental health just as important? Why is it so hard to find a therapist? Why is it so hard to even, it's just crazy how like it's so expensive, and that gave me anxiety. Oh my gosh, therapists isn't like getting help shouldn't give you anxiety. It shouldn't worsen, and that's why I think it's so important that we push this in every way possible, because it's such a part of everybody's life. Literally every single person has mental health. You don't, like you said, you don't have to be diagnosed with something. People still get stressed out. People still have burnouts. People still, have all these symptoms, extremely sad. It's still in your head and it's still considered mental health. And another thing is just like, some people may, like when I felt lost, like I thought I couldn't turn to anybody. And what we're doing, or what, I love that we're doing this and we're reaching out to people, because if somebody were to reach out to me like, hey, I know I know exactly, go look at this, go do this, because I'm sure you won't, it will make them feel less alone. And that's what all I wanted, because especially when you're in a situation before you get diagnosed, before you go to your first trip to a therapist, you feel super alone. That is the most terrible feeling. You feel like nobody will understand you. You feel like people are going to think you're going crazy. You feel like all of this, all these running emotions, and it makes you so much more scared to even come out with it. But it shouldn't be. I feel like all these, like you say, it should be normalized. Like, hey, it's normal. Like, this is something that goes on in people's lives. That, and it's just like, the more we get educated, because there's people, like you say, kids stuck at home. And growing up, yeah, we talked about mental health, but it wasn't something that was like, it was more just like, you'll get over it. Just talk positively. But it doesn't always work effectively. Like, you can't just tell somebody that, because for me, it just kind of triggers me more. It's just like, oh my God, like if you keep telling, like, you didn't think I thought of that before. And then it makes your like mental breakdown just like, oh my God, nobody understands me and this and that. And people are more educated, like, okay, let's listen to you, what's going on, and just to be that person for somebody else, and to let them know that you understand them, that you've been there, that you felt this loneliness. If somebody were to come up to me and told, like you guys told your story, it makes me feel so much more like, oh my God, like I'm normal. Like, people deal with all the things. And before even any of you guys talking, I would have never, and that's the thing. You walk by everybody every single day. You don't know what they're going through. And it's just like, they could be the happiest person in the world. And it's just like, they go home and it's just like, and for me, I'm that person, that friend group. I'm the person who wants to make everybody laugh. But as soon as I get home, it's just like, I look in the mirror, it's just like, are you really that happy that you portray, And that's why I think it's good, not only that we educate it, but we keep up with people, like we have physical checkups every, like what year you get, like you go to the doctor, they check all you. I think mental health checkups should be a thing too, because it's your health. It is part of your and it's just when people, and the whole stigma, oh, that's a different thing, like people need to realize that just because you have OCD, just because you have anxiety, bipolar, PTSD, anything, you're still human. These are human things. They all happen in the brain. And it's like you really think I want to live with this? You really think I chose to have this? You think that this is enjoyable? No. Or like, just stop washing your hands. Oh, you think I haven't tried that before? Like, it's just, the more education, the more emotional intelligence there is. And that's what's needed. Because when people don't understand, it's really hard to communicate, like, especially like, it's just I get all tongue tied, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. I have so much more in my head, but it's like when I get up to talk, I'm just like, like, where is it at? But I think,
Girl,
you know,
me too.
yeah, so I'm just like, I'm just everywhere. But that's, you know, the more we have these Zoom meetings, the more that will come to my head, and I'll be able to, you know, contain them into like certain topics. But like I said, mental health is such a big web that you can go off into different areas. We need more diversity in therapy. We need this being taught in, like, little kids, not little, but children should be able to acknowledge their feelings and not feel like they're a brat or not feel that they're being too much. Because, you know, I have younger sisters and I see it with them. So what I do is I try to talk to them. Is, you know, siblings are crazy. You do have your arguments. So sometimes I may get impatient and be like, oh my God. But most of the times I try to sit there and be like, hey, let's talk about what you're like. I'll tell her, because my little sister, I tell my parents, you know, I see her, I see my younger self in her. So I'm like, let me talk to her, because when I was little, you guys talked to me like this. And now that I know that, you know, I was dealing with OCD and all these intrusive thoughts and all these like mood swings. Let me talk to her because I understand. I'll talk to her and be like, hey, like, you know, I usually try to sit her down when she gets really angry, like really bad. So I'll sit her down and be like, okay, let's acknowledge it, you know, not realize that, let's talk about what's going on. And she'll talk about it, and I realize how calm she gets. And it's just like, wow, if everybody did that with people who are having these like, you know, meltdowns and stuff like that, just imagine like just letting people being able to express themselves in a way where they're not feeling like they're not being forced with positive, like sometimes that doesn't always work, like just forcing positivity on people, like just be positive, or it's not a bad day. Like, yes, it is a bad day. Let me acknowledge it and let me talk about it. The more, like how Megan said, you have to release these things. You have to allow yourself to feel negative emotions, because just because you have a negative emotion doesn't mean there won't be a positive outcome from it. You have to acknowledge it first. The sooner you acknowledge it, then you start thinking, okay, how can I fix this? What's in my control? Because it all starts there. If you can't control it, you know, don't worry about it. It's not happening yet. And I always have to tell myself, you know, don't worry about the things you can't control, because they're out of your control. The more you worry about it, the more anxiety feeds into you. And I feel that one so much. So I really try to tell myself that every day, you know, don't dwell on the things you can't control, live in the moment. And sometimes, you know, I have a bad day and I'm like, screw that. Like, this is so terrible. Like, you know, we all have those days, but as long as we keep pushing, and like an organization like this and people, especially you guys hearing all your stories, like this really pushes me and drives me like, wow, there's people who think the same thing as me. Imagine how big our voice can be. Imagine all our voices combined reaching out through social media. Thank God for social media in these days, because imagine how much more people we can reach. Like I can see something so big growing out of this, and this is why I'm really a part of it. I really want to put my voice out there, and I want to create a voice for others who don't have a voice, who are stuck in homes that don't believe in mental health, who are stuck in homes or that don't even have a home and they have no financial ability to go seek, you know, help. You know, I want to be there. I want to be that person who's be like, I get you. I understand you. We'll help you. We'll get you there, you know? And I want to be able to do that. And with people like you, I know we can really make it out there. And I really see it.
I appreciate that, Jay. I mean, we love to have you. Your story means a lot. Your story, your passion, you're real. You're real, and all of us are real in our own ways. And this is what makes a story authentic. This is what makes us relatable. And this is what's going to break that barrier, because mental health has usually been it's not really in other, a lot of nationalities aren't going into talking to mental health, because you go back into the generations that either ignored it, went to religion, or just don't believe in it at all. It's like you have all these different avenues that it's just like, oh, no, we have our own way of dealing with this. Okay, we're just not going to talk about it. No, the more we start being diverse in our conversations, the more we start to realize that mental health is real. It is real. And we got 6 testaments right here. It's real. Doesn't matter what shape, size, or form we come in. It's life. Life happens. And mental health is part of life. And so it should be. But the more we normalize it here, the more we're going to start causing that change into the future mental health leaders future therapists, future teachers, future people that are going to be in positions to make change as well. But it started with hearing Jay's conversation. It started with hearing Kayla's, Adrian, Megan, Kiana's, my story. Everyone has a story, but in order to really find your voice, it really can be driven by just hearing someone that you really do relate to. Because I've been in a room full of people and I've felt completely alone. And I've been in that place where I wanted to talk so bad, but I knew no one would understand me. But if I would have said something, who knows? I could have started a conversation with some random person where it's just like, oh, I go through that too. And that would have just been a spark where it's like, oh shit, there's other people out there. It's not just me. Okay. What do we do? And whether it be like I don't know, at least I know that I'm not alone. At least I know that these feelings are real. I've just been validated that this is a real thing just by their existence. Because mental health wasn't talked about. And when I was going through this, I was in the Air Force. As a male in the military, I didn't there no talk of being what do you do when you're drugged and sexually assaulted by 5 women? That alone was just like, that's what, how do you talk about that, first of all? And then how does that happen to a man? How does all of these things, because you don't talk about it, all of these things come to you and you're just like, yep, I'm just not going to talk about it ever. Nothing's ever going to be talked about. And, I'm just going to keep crying and I'm going to keep waking up in the middle of the night and I'm going to, I have all these different things happening. I got anxiety, depression by day, and then my depression and PTSD coming at night. Like, what day didn't exist? Like, I lived my mental health, but I was existing in a world that wasn't my truth. And these are the conversations that need to be heard. These are the topics that need to be talked about. We're working really hard where it's not just these conversations. We're working to try to get into the schools. We're working to really come with some type of curriculum that we can help teach mindfulness while telling our stories. Because it starts with talking. But what happens when you find your voice? Okay, great. You've learned how to express yourself. But once that 10-year-old kid learns how to express himself, how do they deal with an anxiety attack? How do we start teaching the little things that help us every single day and simplify it? Because breathing is simple. So why aren't we teaching them how to breathe? Then you got all the other stuff that we work together. We start finding more and more things that are going to start working to just give voices, to let the kids be able to talk. Because the secrets that some of these kids are holding on to are eating them inside. And they just don't know why they keep acting up in class. And they just don't know why they don't get along with their parents. They don't know why none of their relationships are working. They don't know why they feel uncomfortable in certain groups of people. They don't understand these feelings at all. They just know sometimes I get a stomach ache when things happen. So it's very important that we do start here. But this is step one. And as we go on, I think there's about 40 or so mental health advocates. Pretty much the first conversations is just everyone just kind of, we're opening up a platform. And it's a very safe space. We've all talked about very sensitive topics to every single one of us. And whether you're saying your whole story right now or you're just grazing the surface, that's okay. It took me 28 years to find my voice. And there was a lot of rough parts in the middle. So if we just start the conversations, that's going to do a lot of good. And then as we go on, we're going to start setting up as topics. So those of us that have certain topics that we're really passionate about, we can talk on those. And it can be a little bit more direct for those safe spaces that we're providing for those individuals that really do need it. Because eating disorders is a huge topic. It is a very sensitive topic for those people that have been through it, those people that have been through it in their past. It's tough. It's tough, especially with all the self-image and the body image problems that come with it as well. Because I was there. I don't get it. I was in the worst shape of my life. And then I got to literally the best shape of my life. I was a physique competitor and I was 5% body fat. And I just remember right before I went on stage, I was crying because I was like, I thought this was going to help me. And it didn't. Because if you don't address those problems, it's never going to get better. If you don't find your voice, things can't get better. And I'm just thankful that you guys showed a lot of bravery today, showed what a safe place is all about. And I'm excited for where every single one of you guys go with your voice. Because we're all in this together. And I'm forever thankful for you guys. So, with all that being said, I really do appreciate you guys jumping in this meeting and being open. And let's continue to pursue a dream and pursue this mission of allowing that person to find what they need when they need it. Because all of us know some space that we were once in, that if we would have just been shown that there was a safe place or there was somebody there that showed that they cared, maybe they wouldn't have not gotten the help that or maybe they would have just gotten the help that they needed. Maybe that would have started a conversation that would have got them the help that they needed and started their journey of their mental health. Because I do really believe that once we normalize this, we're going to be able to help a lot of people. Because the internal battles some of these people are facing, and a lot of people are facing, is rough. It's a rough path to be on your own. So I thank you guys.